It's really my honor to introduce the speaker this afternoon. I've been watching Liz do her work for many years, and I got to see a piece that we are, I think, bringing in next season, and just a few years ago, and was just blown away by it. I'm just so excited that she's here with us. Liz Lerman is the founding artistic director of the Liz Lerman Dance Exchange. She's won numerous awards, including the 2002 MacArthur Genius Grant Fellowship. She's a businesswoman, successfully running her dance company for over 30 years. She's authored numerous books, including Liz Lerman's Critical Response Process. In fact, she gave a master class earlier today with KU Dance in regards to this book, and it was quite amazing. And of course, has created many, many dance works, including her most recent Ferocious Beauty Genome. Liz Lerman is a dancer, a choreographer, a performer, a mother, a writer, an educator, a speaker, and I would like to add, I think she's one of our country's most inquisitive artists. Please welcome Liz Lerman.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody that Karen thanked. So thank you. It really is wonderful to be here. And I also want to thank Karen. She's been just an amazing, wonderful guide and bringing me here and making me feel so welcome, as has her colleagues. And it's really, really nice to be here. And I just want to say one word about Steve Tepper. I forgot he's coming out. The last time I saw Steve Tepper, I was just getting ready to talk to start work on this piece about genetics. And we crossed paths, and he said to me, follow the money. So he's a very interesting person too. So take a listen when he's here. And tell him I said hey, but I didn't follow his advice. I mostly want to talk today a little bit about what happens when a choreographer spends time with geneticists, when dancers spend time with scientists, and how incredible, how much wonderful discovery goes on in that. But I want to begin with just before I ever got into this, I used to really love Nobel Week, you know, when they started announcing all the awards. And I think I liked it because, first of all, you had a sense that these people, many of whom had been working, you know, in their little corners of their little labs for, you know, thousands of days and thousands of hours, this sort of tedium, the tedium of it. And to have this moment where somehow there's some acknowledgement and recognition, but I also love it because you know that when they're interviewed, you know, they get about 10 seconds to explain their whole life, right? Their whole life in 10 seconds, or that's the 10 seconds we get on the radio. And this was a few years ago, and I was driving along, and you know, the thing is, I turned on the radio late, so I don't know which scientist said this, but he said, I'm getting this award because I have been rattling around in someone else's universe. I just love that. Rattling around in someone else's universe. So I'm just wondering, like right away, I know you came to listen to me, but I'm curious, like what's the picture in your mind when you hear that? Is something like, do you see something? And what do you see? Yeah.
Rattling is kind of a dance word. So the scientist in someone else's universe where everything is moving like the warrior motions, like some dance motions, and he's kind of rattling around.
He's saying that he's seeing a scientist, and he's taking the word rattle as a dance word, and that the scientist is sort of revolving around in a sort of dancerly way the things around. What else do you see? Rattling around in someone else's universe. Do you have just a real quick set of images, anybody? Yeah.
It sounds like he doesn't know much.
Sounds like he doesn't know much. I love that.
He makes himself sound like
Yeah, well, actually, he may not know much. I mean, there's a naivete quality to this that we can come back to, the nature of not knowing. And yes, there is a little self-deprecation in there, which helps, yeah. And what else? Yeah.
That all the planets are like a great big rattle.
Oh, that's fun. Great. Anybody else? You got something going? Yeah.
Yeah, I see going up into somebody's attic or somebody's world, like the elderly that you run into.
Just going in some other world.
And discovering.
Yeah, it's like Alice's hole almost, a little rabbit hole. Yeah, one more, yeah.
He's actually lost, and he is trying to find something that would probably give him a sense of accomplishment.
Did you hear that? Lost but finding some accomplishment. It's very interesting. To me, partly I think about rattling around in someone else's universe. As I was thinking about the rattle and what it's smashing up against, and the fact that you can get bruised. And if you've seen old baby rattles that have been handed down generation after generation, you know they're all scraped and cut and they're bent, and which I think is part of it. I think when I think for myself, throwing myself into the science world, it's not like it's all hunky-dory and that everybody just opens their doors up. So that's one thing. But I like the sharpening process of being questioned by people who don't agree with me. I love that. I don't mind the bruises. When I think about this rattle, I also think about how much of a rattle's on the inside. The outside stays relatively the same, but the inside is changing. I think, and lastly, I like to think that, people get rattles. When, you give a rattle to a baby when they're crying a lot, or at least I did to my daughter. And it's not that I was crying in the dance world. It's not that. I love the dance world. But I find that when I step out of it, I get refreshed. I see the world in a new way. And I think that's also what this person was implying. So when I started working on this piece, I didn't know I was going to make a piece about genetics. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I got a call from the Henry Art Gallery in Seattle, which is the big art gallery there, and they were showing a work called Genesis, in which 5 visual artists were working with genetic material. So if you went to the exhibit, you saw DNA in a multitude of forms being used in 1,000 different ways, including making new living creatures and things like that. And it caused a huge stir, and the public was pretty outraged. And the art gallery called me because they knew that I have this process called the critical response process, which we did this morning. They thought I could come out and sort of help make things better. Well, I couldn't with the critical response process because it's not about that, but I was really interested that the public got riled up about art and that they wanted to spend some time together. So I agreed to go, but I said I don't know anything about genetics, but I'll come and help. So they overnighted me on what I like to say was 5 pounds of genetics. I mean, I got this huge package the next morning, and I went into shock. I realize now I went into shock because they sent me the shocking material. They could have sent me something else, but they chose to send me the stuff that sends the public into being very, very scared. What got me the most with this material was some issues around reproduction. My daughter at the time was in high school. I was thinking, she's going to have different decisions to make than maybe I had to make, or she's going to have a different array of choices anyway. Maybe as a mother, I should know something about this. And so I said to myself, I don't know anything about genetics, but if I make a dance about it, by the time I'm done, I'll know something. Because I think when you make things, you start investigating in entirely curious and interesting ways. And one of the things I'm most strongly a proponent of, and I hope is in evidence in a creative campus, is how artists research. The way artists research, how much they research, and the fact that it doesn't necessarily look like the research when they're done with it is one of the most fabulous things about it. The fact that the facts themselves get translated over and over and over again and end up looking like something else. Now, how do we engage a public in that? That's, of course, the same issue that the scientists have. How do we engage a public in understanding that if, for example, I'm working at CERN and I'm spending time on these things that nobody can see and they don't know if it's going to work and it may not even, how do we do that? There is some similarity there. So I began the process by rattling around in a lot of scientific laboratories for about a year before we even went into the studio. Along the way, I was trying to figure out this: how do scientists ask a question?